Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics as we continue on our coverage of what appears to be the collapsing silver bullion cartel complex. Now, it's only about 9 o'clock Pacific time right now. And we, who knows what today will bring? I mean, this week alone, the LBMA miscounted basically the exact amount of metal that they allegedly added during Silver Squeeze weekend when they said they were weeks away from running out, given the data that they just released. Maybe they actually did run out and just didn't tell anyone. Hard to know, although fortunately I'm joined by Taj Singh of Discovery Metals, who has basically the largest silver deposit in the world as I hear it. I remember listening to Eric Sprott to talk about it, Now, Taj, first of all, how are you, sir, today? I can't. I'm so excited to get to my silver banker jokes. I lost my manners yet again, but how are you?
Very good, Chris. Good to be on. We love everything you guys are doing, and it's great to be on for the first time.
Well, I sure appreciate that. I'm just trying to up my game so I can get into the. Well, actually, I don't want to get into the club, but now I've heard from some of the silver coverage on the internet, that there's some people to be taken seriously, some not. From some of the bankers, I don't know if Eric Sprott, which category he would fit into according to the LBMA, but it also seems like he liked some of the things you guys are doing, as we will dig into. But I'm guessing that part of the reason that Eric Sprott talks about you guys, talks about silver, is that unlike Goldman Sachs, Eric does seem capable of first grade math. And I'm wondering, you had the price of silver low. So for the last decade, anybody who thought about investing in silver from investment perspective, not the industrial users, I mean, most of them made it a couple years before they threw in the towel. Some are still throwing in the towel now. So you were able to keep the silver price low. Yet what people like Rick Rule and others who've been around since the 80s have been saying is watch out when the investment demand comes back. We saw what happened after a weekend of investment demand has been blowing holes through the entire bullion banking system. And as someone that is going to be counted on to fill that void, I'm curious what you've been seeing and anything you could share about that.
Yeah, listen, it's from the miner side, we're just trucking away. And as I've said before, we're just trying to figure out how to get silver out of the ground for the cheapest cost. But listen, it's pretty evident something's going on. Gold hit its all-time high a few months ago. Silver's not even close to its all-time high, on $50. And I think people are realizing silver squeeze, it was short-lived, but it got a lot of attention, got a lot of people thinking about silver. You're a bunch of younger investors now coming in, thinking about silver and interested in silver. It was really good for a bunch of other reasons. And on top of that, from the industrial side of things, silver is really getting a reputation of being a very important green metal. So that's always good. Namely its use in electric vehicles, solar panels, 5G. So there's also that kind of exposure. But it's pretty evident. Every bull market, every precious metal bull cycle you look at, silver absolutely materially outperforms gold by huge margin. And I think we're just very much in the early innings of that. Already 2020, it did outperform, but I think it's really just the beginning of it. Silver's got the double whammy, as we know about. It's got the industrial demand and the investment demand. And even if you look at the numbers, we can, we'll talk about it in a second, but even just the industrial demand, there's a shortage. You're not going to be able to, that itself will drive the price up because of its silver's uses and a bunch of other new applications and growing uses. But if you layer that on top of that with an investment demand increase, it's gone. It's a rocket. It's silver's 1/10 the size of the gold universe. And it really responds to marginal buying, as we all know. I'm we're all waiting for the time. It feels like it's drawing nearer and nearer, but we'll keep our head down and keep working, moving the company forward. But we really do hope we can see silver start shining even brighter.
Well, of course, that is one of the many glorious properties of silver. I like what you did there, Taj. Very smooth.
See that?
Although I found it very punny, and keep them coming. That's welcome on my show. Although, I mean, you raised several interesting points there, and I'll try and go one at a time. You mentioned that people are noticing, and you also said that the silver squeeze was a little bit short-lived. Although, if the silver squeeze brought the LBMA, in their own words, within weeks of running out of metal, now we find out they had an error. I don't know if they were lying. It seems like a significant error.
Yep.
An error that was material in the context of the market. And then also we heard the CFTC commissioner talk about how the futures market structure tamped it down, and somebody took all these actions that matched the CFTC's role to control the price and the volatility. And also in the LBMA's report, after they acknowledged all this, they said, well, as long as nobody ever talks about silver again, things are good to go. But I'm wondering, was it short-lived, or was there a lot of lying going on to make people think it was short-lived, which, hey, lying, accidents, mistakes, I don't really care about that. But I'm curious if all the people who bought silver that weekend are now finding out that there was a reason why, after all that silver buying, the price was actually lower. I don't know. Do you think any of those people might say, holy crap, what we're doing actually was working? These guys had to get together to commit a series of felonies. What if we do this again? What do you think? What do you say to that, Taj?
Well, I completely agree with you. So I was kind of more saying it was short-lived. That's what actually happened. That's what we saw. But there was a lot of work that had to go on behind the scenes to make that short-lived. And I've been doing a bit of reading this week, and there's no reason why the silver squeeze can't happen again. And eventually it's going to get enough momentum behind it, and it could happen. I still do truly believe it could happen again.
Well, I think it's an inevitability myself, although that is speculation. I'm not planning anything, at least as of today. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Yeah, Taj, you also mentioned the industrial users. And that's something that doesn't get as much coverage, but especially given your role and having more exposure to that, I'm darn curious if I'm a Samsung or an Apple. I mean, I wonder what they have been thinking as they watch this while they're building products that require silver. Anything you can share there?
Well, at a high level, I can tell you there's some of these big, huge, colossal electronics companies are getting directly in touch with mining companies. I know this. So this could be very, very interesting, number one. Number two, in terms of demand, just even the three things I talked about that are gaining steam: electric vehicles, 5G, and solar. You're talking about by 2030, the demand to increase in those three to go up by 200 million ounces a year, right? And total mine supply is about 1 billion ounces a year. You can have a huge shortfall, and you can't just turn it on and off. These projects take time to develop, to progress, to de-risk. It's an inevitability that there's going to be a significant deficit, even if investment demand doesn't go up.
Can you say that again, please, sir?
It's an inevitability that there will be a deficit, even if investment demand doesn't go up.
Even if Jerome Powell quantitatively eases the situation?
Yeah. Global debt mountain's $280 trillion. You think there's something's got to happen soon. But where was I going with it? I was going with the fact that everyone says, oh, when the silver price goes up and you're gonna, for its industrial use, you'll get some substitution, or they're gonna start switching out for other metals. None, didn't happen at all. Silver went up from 14 bucks to 27, 28. You're not getting much substitution at all. Wait times for getting physical silver, premiums are at their highest, wait times are at their longest. The demand for bars and coins is higher than it's ever been, and it will continue to grow. I mean, it's all pointing in that direction.
Although Taj, actually, this is probably a great bullet on your resume. It seems like you are not a client of Jeff Curry of Goldman Sachs, who recently reported that copper is now the greatest conductor of electricity on the periodical table of elements, and perhaps in the history of the galaxy. He says a lot of unusual things. Yet, back to what you're saying with the industrial users, because this is a question I get a lot, and who better to ask than you? Is it feasible that, and you kind of answered it already, but can the companies that are producing silver, can they go straight to the consumers? Because it seems, from my opinion, the COMEX is like the world's all-time middleman, sucking value, destroying the price, or not destroying any free market pricing. And so a lot of people wonder, is it possible that companies can go straight to these industrial users?
Listen, it's exactly what you said. It's a system that's always been in place using the COMEX. But for example, if you look at like rare earth metals, the companies who need it, if a Samsung needs it for a certain electronic application, or Tesla needs it in a vehicle, they're just going right to the guys who produce the rare earth metals. It could get to that.
Yep.
But we're used to this norm, and that's how things are proceeding. But sometimes drastic measures call for drastic actions. Let's see.
Yeah, well, fortunately, I'm not a big fan of the norms myself. I tend to like common sense a little bit more than fraudulent norms that Wall Street propagates. So, as we were discussing shortly before our call, there's a lot of people now involved. One guy's building a physical silver index, which many people have requested. We're having meetings almost daily to look into not collusion like the banks do, but just, hey, if the regulators are going to sit here and allow the crime to continue, what are the legal options? How can companies respond? And I think there's a lot of growing interest, because I think there's the degree to which it's almost too unbelievable to imagine this could be happening. Yet, what are you hearing amongst your peers and in the silver industry? I mean, are they aware of it? Are they frustrated by it and looking for solutions? What have you seen from the companies that are producing the silver?
I think the situation is we're just so preoccupied, right? We're trying to run a business, again, as I said. But now, especially with social media, with various various kind of experts highlighting things on social media, et cetera, and the internet, et cetera, we're getting more educated about things, and it's pretty frustrating, very frustrating. I think we're always going to resort to going back and saying, okay, if silver's 25 bucks an ounce, so be it, let's go, and you just keep working and trucking along. But when you actually start digging into it, it's like, this is getting a bit ridiculous. It's considering how hard it is to actually mine the thing, the costs involved, it just doesn't even make sense. And copper's at an all-time high, close to. Gold's at its all-time high and close to. What's going on with silver? Zinc's at $1.40 a pound, very high. Like everything's going up in price. Silver's got to give here soon. So let's bide our time, and again, let's see if we can get some traction, some steam here overall.
And Taj, I'd like to ask you, as an entrepreneur, and I would say that figuring out a way to have the largest silver deposit in the world, despite the fraud that makes it difficult to do that and to run a business. I mean, these guys pushed the price of silver below $12 when the cost of production, I think, was around 15 or 16 bucks for most of these miners. So as someone, to me, I mean, if anytime you want to talk about your background, I'll sit there with the notebook because I mean, I've launched a YouTube channel and that was hard, and you've run circles around that. Yet at the same time, combined with what you just said about entrepreneurs solve problems in the marketplace, right?
Yeah.
So given what you said, of all the things that you've done your part, and now not that you were asking for help, but I mean, it sounds like the mining companies, they need to be focused on running their business. So for people who are out there watching and want to get involved, would you say this is almost the opportunity of a lifetime for an entrepreneur who cares about free markets, and whether it's doing their own thing, or I told you about the volunteer groups we have and they want to help get involved with what we're doing? I see it as a great opportunity, and I'm whether financial or otherwise, for anyone who helps make progress in a very important situation where, again, with the impact of the dollar's reserve currency that is hanging on this. Would you agree that if people are frustrated, there's a great chance to do something positive about it?
I completely agree. Now is as good a time as any. I completely agree with you on that.
Well,
and I think the mining, sorry to interrupt, I think the mining companies are getting more involved too, and they from the peers I talked to in the silver mining industry, would like to be involved too.
Do you think the fact that I sent him that letter that I sent to Rostin Benham, laying out all the seemingly fraudulent things that are going on, I don't know, could that have had some impact, you think?
That went around for sure. That did have a significant impact, I think. That was great to see that.
Sorry, LVMA. There's a chance someone might talk about silver on the internet before the end of the galaxy. Although, Taj, I was hoping before he let you run, for the people who get into the silver stocks and think there's a big silver move coming and say, like, why is Eric Sprott always talking about this company? Maybe he knows more than Jeff Curry. Can you let folks know the key parameters so that way, if it fits what they're looking for in their portfolio, and we can tell them how to get more information and questions answered?
Perfect. Discovery Silver is one of the leading silver developers in the world now.
What's that new name I hear there?
Discovery Silver. Yeah. We just recently changed. We recently changed to that. We have the world's largest undeveloped silver deposit located in Mexico, obviously the world's largest silver producing nation, on a major belt, beautiful infrastructure around, like it's the perfect place for a mine. And it's just the sheer size of it. We've got over 500 million ounces of just silver. And then with other metals, you're close to almost 1 billion ounces of silver equivalent, because you got zinc, lead, and gold there. But it's a monster. We've been drilling it very heavily, and we really believe it has the potential to be one of the largest silver mines in the world, if not the largest. It's a bit unique and rare because most silver deposits are in veins, so you're kind of in the ore or you're in waste. And we've got one of the few large projects that is an open pit project, meaning it's very disseminated over a huge footprint. And so as silver price goes up, there's kind of a higher grade, then there's a medium grade, then there's a lower grade. As silver price goes up, the resource, without even drilling, gets larger and larger and larger and larger. So that's really the size of it and the scalability. Like a lot of these silver mines, and it goes back to the other point, if suddenly silver went to $100 tomorrow, these silver miners couldn't increase their throughput 2x. They can't. They're underground. You can't do anything. It's going to cost you millions of dollars, time, effort, to be able to even increase your output by 50%. We're in the situation, which I think a lot of people are cluing into, is we can double our throughput, I don't know, in a year and a half. You can double our throughput, like boom, all of a sudden, because we're an open pit. It's a big footprint. So that's one of the very big advantages we have. And again, it's very rare in the silver space. And yeah, we're cashed up almost $100 million in the bank. We're going to push this all the way to construction, and this thing's going to be a beast. It's Eric Sprott's largest silver position. I think in the top is First Majestic, Mag Silver, and Silvercrest. So great company to be along with. But we are, by dollar value, his largest position. he's been a fantastic supporter and shareholder. And yeah, and he says, Taj, when silver goes to $100, you don't even need to blast. You just start digging up, because our deposit starts at surface. You'll just be digging up silver and making lots of money per ton of ore. But again, we're running a business. We got to make it work at spot price, silver price, even lower. You got to watch out for the downside. But honestly, Chris, if silver goes where we think it's going to go, it's really hard to match the leverage and torque we have. Just the sheer size and the fact that we know eventually this will be a mine very soon.
Taj, I don't want to go overboard or get ridiculous here. It sounds like you might have more silver than Jeff Curry of Goldman Sachs has SLV shares, which is not easy to do. Yet, I want to cover both sides here, but given that we're seeing the fraud in the bullion banking industry unravel, we're in the midst of a hyperinflation campaign, and now the economy is still shut down despite the vaccines and everything being allegedly safe now. So, there's a lot going for you, plus that whole biggest silver deposit thing. What could go wrong? What do investors need to be aware of the risks?
I think, yeah, the biggest risk is silver price. We kind of have been, when we took over this project in 2019, our focus was we want to make a project that works at $17 or $18 silver. There's a mine there. It'll focus on the high grade portion of the mine. It's still a mine. It's still great returns, still great payback, IRR. That was our whole focus. And then as 19 went by, 2020 went by, silver started going up. And we always had that kind of downside protection. I think we wanted to say this project works at 17 or $18 silver. And then if it goes, really no one can touch our exposure, our leverage, our torque. And we're here now. And if it keeps moving, that'll be great. But I think, yeah, silver price is the big thing. I think, if silver goes back to, I don't even want to say it, but if it went to like $10, $11, I'd say probably 90% of silver mines would shut down. I don't even think it's doable. And to be honest, I don't even think $17 or $18 is what silver can be. Like this stuff is costly to get out of the ground and process it. And it's all gonna be realized soon. But I think that's a risk, that the powers that be continue their trickery and cause silver price to drop. That's something that's definitely sometimes keeps you up at night. The first thing I look at when I wake up is the silver chart. So it definitely is plays a major role. But that's probably the one risk I'd say. And again, I want to say that and reiterate that we're trying to protect ourselves on that downside. I really think the story's got very good downside protection, unless you think silver's going to 12, which you probably shouldn't even be listening here. But we've got the downside protection, I think. But we've got all the upside too. I think also in terms of risk, something unique and interesting about us is the style of the deposit again is an open pit. We can drill right into the deposit, and you can, the drilling density is very high. You know how the deposit looks. You can see it in 3D, and that's a very, a lot more. It's an accurate indication of what the deposit is like. In underground mines, there's more risk, right? You don't know what's going to happen underground. Suddenly, you get a fault or fracture that displaces things. And it's happened. So I'd say another positive point about our story is we're an open pit project, and there's inherently less risk associated with that. On top of the other things I mentioned, being close to infrastructure, being in a very mining friendly country, et cetera. So there's risks always with mining, but I think we've got a good handle on them.
Well, it does sound like it, a better handle than the CFTC has on tamping down the price. My guess is the CFTC and the LBMA and Goldman Sachs will be the floor on the silver market, because they're not as good at covering up the previous batch of lies as the latest one. But Taj, for anyone who wants the solution, doesn't want to have their money in the hands of the U.S. government or Ponzi treasury schemes, can you just let folks know again the website, how they can get questions answered?
Perfect. Yeah, the website is discoverysilver.com. We're also very active on Twitter. and also on the professional side of things on LinkedIn. But we have quite a few followers and quite a following on Twitter, as well as on our website. And there's all the contact information there. And we welcome any and all questions, and be sure to get back to you.
Well, I sure appreciate that, Taj. I think it's an exciting and special time in the silver world, even if the price hasn't reflected that yet. And I appreciate all that you stand for, all you've persevered through, and we'll be looking forward to following your success in the years going forward.
Thanks so much, Chris. I really, from the Discovery team, we really appreciate all that you're doing, and hope to stay in close touch and keep trucking on. And hopefully we can all see the light at the end of the tunnel soon.
Will do, my friend. Look forward to it.